Morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for May 19, 2020. And I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board. And we also have Vice Chair Ty Menser and Commissioner Gary Edwards. We have County Manager Ramiro Chavez, and we have Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell. We have on the phone, we have Sheriff John Snaza, and on camera, we have Undersheriff Tim Braniff. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. I'd like to advise the public that if you want to call in and join via conference call, you can listen in at area code 360-252-9020, and your PIN is 1234. One more time, 360-252-9020, and your PIN is 1234, and you can join in, at least listen to the work session. We typically start with, Ramiro, am I missing anybody else for introductions?
Yeah, I think we have staff join in. There's not that many. If you may ask them to introduce themselves.
How many are there? Like let's just wait. I don't know who they are.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, so we'll wait because everybody will start talking at the same time, and I'll just delay things.
The only one that I do not recognize is with Pat Schick. I don't know. Then you have Shelley Slaughter, Dennis Osorio, Kurt Harding, Elizabeth Petridge, Mark McElroy, and somebody's joining. I think it's Jesse King.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for doing that because I don't even have the names listed, so I couldn't do that. Thank you. We're going to start, typically we start with COVID-19 update, hi Keely, but we're going to start with the law enforcement proclamation so we can get law enforcement back on the road rather than wait an hour to get to this. So we're starting with the law enforcement proclamation, and Commissioner Menser is going to read this in recognition of the Law Enforcement Recognition Week in Thurston County. And there's a great article in the paper about Canine Jacks bringing down a bad guy after the canine had been assaulted. And that is a very cool story, in my opinion. Anyway, go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Law Enforcement Recognition Week in Thurston County. Whereas Thurston County recognizes the extraordinary service and sacrifice of the people in law enforcement who keep our community safe, enforce the rule of law, and respond in times of crisis. And whereas the President and Congress declare May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day every year, and the week in which it falls as National Police Week. And whereas there are more than 900,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the many members of the Thurston County Sheriff's Office and our local city police departments. And whereas there are numerous assaults against these officers resulting in injuries and death, with more than 20,000 law enforcement officers having made the ultimate sacrifice. And whereas it is important for all Thurston County residents to recognize and understand the duties and responsibilities, the dangers faced and sacrifices made by our law enforcement officers as they serve to protect us from violence and disorder. And whereas citizens' acts of kindness and recognition for law enforcement officers provide our everyday heroes a source of encouragement and support as they confront uncertain and potentially dangerous situations each day. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of County Commissioners hereby proclaims the week of May 17th to the 23rd as Law Enforcement Recognition Week in Thurston County, and encourages the community today and every day to honor all law enforcement officers who put their own lives on the line to protect the lives of others. Adopted this 19th day of May 2020 Board of County Commissioners.
Yay. And typically, of course, we would have you in the boardroom and present you with a proclamation and have pictures taken, and the place would be packed, but these are crappy times. And so we're doing it virtually, and we do have a proclamation to hand off to the sheriff or to you, Tim. Commissioner Edwards, any comments?
No, I think everybody knows where I'm at on this deal. We can't appreciate these folks enough, and I'm gonna keep it that short. Thank you to all you law enforcement officers that put your life on the line every day. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Menser, any words?
Well, a thank you for your day-to-day work, and I want to put a special thank you for the efforts that our sheriff's office has made, and I think the other city municipal law enforcement agencies as well during this health pandemic, both being on the front lines, but also working with us to protect the jail populations and manage the criminal justice system in a fair and safe way. So I've been very proud to go out to the community and report on all the things that our law enforcement officers and leaders have done. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And I would just add that I enjoyed all of my 35 years in law enforcement, but I also enjoy that it's in the rearview mirror now and it's done. And I have plenty of things around the county with my current job to keep me awake at night. But law enforcement, the TCSO, and our local agencies give me great peace and comfort at night. So I have time to worry about the other stuff and not sleep. So thank you, TCSO, and all the other agencies, our city agencies in this county as well, and across the country. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Sheriff and Under Sheriff. Appreciate that.
Commissioner?
Thank you.
Sheriff, do you have anything to say?
I just want to say to the county commissioners and the board, thank you for that recognition. And we deeply appreciate all the support that we do get, not only from the commission, but from our community. We live in a great community. And as has already been said, we do live in very trying times right now. And it just goes to show you the integrity and the commitment that the men and women of law enforcement have for the communities that they serve. And I just want to say thank you for that recognition. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. You're welcome. Ramiro, please.
I'd just like to add to everything has been said today. But most of all, I'd like to say thank you for the Sheriff's Office. And I am the most impressed of the professionalism they carry behind that uniform and serving the citizens of the county. From my perspective, that is unparalleled. And I'd just like to say thank you so much for everything that you do on a daily basis. Much appreciated.
Well done. Tim, do you have anything to say or just a wave?
No, I reiterate what the sheriff had said. We appreciate the support and the recognition. And I know everybody's working very hard to get through this current climate that we're dealing with, but we'll do it all together. And thanks for the opportunity to have this written and proposed to the community.
I might add, though, that public service is just that, public service. It's not just maintaining order, enforcing laws, and keeping the peace. What is it? Tell the people, please, what you're on your way to do now, Tim.
Oh, I'm just out in front of Backpacks for Kids. I'm going to race in there and give the Backpacks for Kids a hand to fill some bags of food. And I know they've got it scheduled over the next few weeks. I would encourage everybody to participate if they can. But these busy times, I thought I'd jump in and give them a hand because they were short-staffed this morning. So it's something good to give back to the community.
That's service to others. Thank you, sir, very much for doing that. Thank you for joining us, too.
Bet.
Be safe and healthy.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. That takes us to our COVID update. And so I'm going to turn to Shelley Slaughter. And I don't know if Dr. Diana Yu's on the line as well. But Shelley, you have it.
Good morning, commissioners. Dr. Yu is not able to join us this morning, but I'm happy to provide the report and answer any questions that you have. As of yesterday at 3 p.m. in Washington State, we have 18,611 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 1,002 deaths. In Thurston County, we stand at 127 cases with 1 death. Of these cases, 115 have been recovering. 19 have been hospitalized at one time or another during the course of their illness. And fortunately, we've had 0 outbreaks in congregate care settings. All of our zip codes in Thurston County show COVID-19 positive cases, with 98513 continuing to show the highest prevalence of cases. To date, we have conducted in our community, in partnership with healthcare providers, 7,190 tests. That equates to 2% of those tests that are positive. The status of our local healthcare and hospital system is currently stable. Hospital beds, vents, ICU beds, PPE, and overall capacity is stable. Keep in mind that our local hospitals here in Thurston County serve as regional hospitals. So when there are outbreaks or other events that require our hospitals to support them and support patients from other communities, that increases our pressure on our hospital system. So that's something that we keep a close eye on. Non-urgent medical procedures were allowed to resume yesterday per Governor Inslee, and our hospital system is committed to reserving 20% for surge capacity. This last week, we've been largely focused on at Thurston County Public Health and on our incident management team on preparing for phase 2. This includes supporting local businesses and reopening and plans for reopening, as well as ensuring that we have enough capability in our public health system to help our county move to the next level. So that includes ensuring that we have enough disease investigators and contact tracers. That way we can very quickly identify people who test positive for COVID-19, advise them to isolate, and their close contacts to quarantine. We're doing very well with that. We've had many volunteers offer their support for contact tracing, and we have over 40 trained and ready to go, as well as offers from the state to provide support in the event we have a surge in the future. We've also been working to ensure that we have adequate testing capacity. Last week, we did a survey of all healthcare providers and asked them about their ability to test and how many tests they conducted and what their barriers were. That's a good idea of whether we can meet our target, and I'm happy to report that we can. We need to ensure that testing is accessible to vulnerable populations, such as our houseless population, and today we have a team going out to offer tests to that community. We're also supporting our long-term care facilities and supporting to a federal directive that came out last week to have all long-term facilities test all of its staff in the next 2 weeks. So our team has been working on that. We're also working on ensuring that we have adequate staffing for our isolation and quarantine facility, and I need to give special thanks to his team in emergency management for helping with that, as well as the entire amazing team that has been working throughout this crisis, ensuring that we have a adequate isolation and quarantine facility available in our community for those who may need it if they are unable to isolate or quarantine at home. We want to encourage people to get tested if they are exhibiting symptoms. We recognize this is a shift from our earlier messaging where we told people stay home unless you were really ill. Since our testing supply and capacity has gone up, we are able to test people if they're symptomatic, and that helps us to be able to, again, quickly identify close contacts and continue to slow the spread of COVID-19 in our community. So there are many healthcare providers, as well as the drive-in community-based testing clinic in Roxbury available for those who would like to get tested. And overall, I just want to say thank you so much to our community for trusting, supporting, healthy. That has really helped us to slow the spread of COVID-19, as well as give us this time that we desperately needed to be able to increase our capacity and let our supply chain catch up. So, and continue to encourage people to stay home, stay healthy for now, isolate if sick, stay away from other people. Vulnerable people should continue to do so for the long term. Wear those cloth face coverings, especially in public areas where you cannot be assured of 6 feet social distancing. So great to see all the great cloth face coverings here on this call today. Wash hands, sanitize surfaces, and thanks to everyone for supporting the community and everyone during this crisis. Any questions?
Any questions for Shelley? Go ahead, Gary.
I've got 3 just real quick questions. How many are in the hospital now with this virus?
For Thurston County residents, the last report that I had was 2 were hospitalized.
Okay. What was the most that we had in at any given time in our hospital being treated? I understood like there was 5 one time or something, but I don't know the answer to that.
For Thurston County residents, I know that we've had a few at a time, but as I shared earlier, because many people from neighboring counties and communities rely on St. Peter Hospital and Capital Medical Center, they often have their beds and their vents occupied by COVID positive people from other communities. So that impacts our hospital. So when we get our reports from them, we don't know oftentimes whether those are Thurston County residents or people from other counties that are hospitalized locally.
Oh, okay, thank you. And how about, are we doing any testing now for those that may have had this and didn't even know it maybe, but do have the antibodies, or maybe they suspected they were sick months ago and didn't know what it was, and now we're testing them to see if they have the antibodies present to show that they were sick at some point?
Not yet here in Thurston County. There is the capability to do that, but that test has not been vetted by public health or science as far as what kind of immunity is conferred to people who may test positive for COVID-19 antibodies. That's a really great surveillance tool for us later. But at this time, that's not a task that public health is recommending.
Okay, thank you very much.
Nothing, Commissioner Minster? Okay. Shelley, thank you very much. And thank all of your staff embedded in this COVID-19 response at PHSS building on Lily Road, but also down at the EMS on Tilly Road too. Thank all of the staff. Appreciate your hard work.
Thank you so much.
And now we're moving into the homeless strategies. And I know we have Keely Marino attending.
Yes. Good morning, commissioners. It's lovely to see you. Not much has changed in homeless response in the past week. We continue to support all of the efforts of our homeless service providers and their shelters and outreach efforts by meeting with them at least once, if not twice or 3 times per week, to ensure that they're receiving the support that they need or answering their questions, and ensuring that we are collaborating as closely as possible with our jurisdictional friends as well as our providers. We have been working closely with the outreach community to ensure, and the shelter providers to ensure that folks are aware that there is a testing event today. So we're hoping to have a number of individuals who are not feeling well show up and feel comfortable enough to go through the testing process. We're ready to transport those individuals that do test to the quarantine and isolation facility, and then to make sure that their basic needs are met. So that's pretty much it for homeless response. There really hasn't been that much going on besides business as usual in COVID times.
Commissioner Minster, anything? Go ahead.
Keely, about I think it was a month-ish ago, there was the opening, I want to say, of 2828 Martin Way Can you bring me up to speed on what happened and where we are and how it's going there?
Absolutely. So 2828 Martin Way is currently sheltering 23 individuals who are fairly vulnerable, chronically homeless, over the age of 60 and with underlying medical conditions 24 hours a day. It's very successful outside of some ongoing plumbing issues that seem to plague Interfaith Works. It's going strong. We're talking with the city of Olympia and Meg Martin with Interfaith Works about whether or not that 2828 Martin Way location will maintain operating throughout the year in order to provide us extra shelter beds ongoing. So that's a conversation that is happening currently. But anecdotally, I'm hearing from Meg Martin that some of this space, this social distancing that's been required of her shelter, as well as all the other shelters, has created some increase in well-being amongst the shelter guests that are staying there due to just having fewer people around and being consistent and 24 hours and 7 days a week.
Like if we weren't in a pandemic, what's the long-term model there? Isn't it going to be like normal shelter on one floor and then permanent supportive housing upstairs
Yes. So this fall, they're slated to break ground on the new building, and the new building will have a shelter on the first floor, and then on subsequent floors above, there will be permanent supportive housing. So that building that they're currently occupying for shelter was set to be demolished, actually. So we're deciding whether or not we're going to keep it while construction moves forward on the permanent building.
that the home fund is funding?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Edwards.
How many dollars are being spent on, are projected to be spent on that new facility that they're talking about building?
On Martin Way?
Yes.
I would have to get some that information for you. I would be guessing if I answered right now, so I could definitely get you that information.
Okay. Do you know currently, do they require that any of the folks that are staying there and maybe that are projected to stay there when this other building is completed, are they going to require at all that that we serve those from our own community first that have fallen on hard times versus those from Kansas City? You know, is there any talk about that? And when I refer to Kansas City, I mean elsewhere, that we've had quite an influx of folks that have come here because they do get pretty good treatment here in Thurston County. And I'm just wondering if there's going to be any criteria in place maybe to serve our own situation. And then also, is there going to be any requirement that they participate in either mental health treatment or drug addiction treatment as one of the criteria if that happens to be their problem? Do you know the answer to that?
Sure. So I can say that every shelter has its own mission and vision. And so I can say that Interfaith Works would not turn anyone away that was seeking services, as that's best practices in terms of housing first, harm reduction, and trauma-informed care. So they will not be turning anyone away that comes to their services that meet the criteria, meaning they are literally homeless and seeking shelter and highly vulnerable. So I do not believe they will be turning anyone away for wherever it is they report that they are from. And secondly, they have increased their navigation team. They got a nice grant from, I believe, the Office of Crime Victims Advocacy for their navigation team to increase. And so their navigation team are mobile case managers that serve specifically the shelter guests in now both of their shelters to help connect them to whatever services they are seeking or needing. So there will be, there are plenty of referrals going out on the daily for various services, including mental health, behavioral health, and substance use.
Are they required at all to participate in any wellness programs like maybe addiction treatment or in mental health programs or anything? Is it all 100% voluntary? They choose to, or maybe they don't choose to?
evidence points to that an individual has to have the will and the desire to seek those services in order for them to be efficacious. So there is no requirement, but there's certainly an offer ongoing for connection to any of those services.
And what about drug usage in those facilities? Is that condoned or is it prohibited in some fashion? Do we know anything about that yet?
Yeah, there is absolutely not a single shelter in our system that condones any kind of usage on site. As far as I know, they all have requirements that it is prohibited to use any substance on site. And there are repercussions for doing so at all of the shelters. So they will not be tolerating use of any controlled substance or alcohol on site.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And Keely, going to the Regional Housing Council, the RHC, last time we met, it's been a couple of months. And I've been in contact with Olympia City Council person, Jim Cooper, about such. He's trying to put a date together. And I think you're involved in that. Do we have a date set yet for our next meeting?
Is this
Correct, we do. It's this Thursday, yes.
Oh, this Thursday?
Mhm.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments for Keely? No. Keely, thank you very much for joining us.
All right, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I
Yes,
don't know
sir.
if you're gonna go back to the COVID-19 update. Kurt Harding is online. I don't know if he wants to contribute.
Oh, yes. Please. And Kurt, number one, I apologize for neglecting you. Go ahead, sir.
No, that's fine. Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Services. I just wanted to add to the only update I have is there was a meeting yesterday. We've talked previously about the state charging for PPE down to local jurisdictions. There was a meeting yesterday at the governor's office, and I believe the state is reconsidered to a certain extent because they didn't realize the logistical and administrative requirements that would be burdened down to the local jurisdictions to make this happen. So the state has come back and they are extending the deadline on charging local jurisdictions for PPE as they reconsider the impact of administering this process. Just to give you an idea, prior to last week, we had approximately 200 organizations receiving PPE through the logistical supply chain in Thurston County. Dentist offices opened up yesterday, or let me rephrase that, were allowed to open up yesterday if they met certain criteria. So we started receiving additional PPE requests from the various dentist offices across the county. So we're only adding to our logistical supply chain requirements. So we're appreciative of the state reconsidering that. And I know I briefed this previously that the state was going to charge us. That is now on hold. They may still come back down the road and put a policy in place, but right now there is no policy that's going to take place by June 1st.
Very good. Any questions of Kurt?
Yeah, I have a question. You stated, Kurt, they extended the deadline or they actually put it on hold.
Okay, so they put it on hold and they say that they're going to come out with a policy down the road. But the fact that we are no longer looking at June 1st, their terminology is it's on hold and it'll be revamped and come out later. But I think the more they look at it, it's becoming more challenging for them to come up with a good policy.
Okay, thank you.
Their
And
original
Kurt,
policy was 2 pages.
Kurt, can you tell me how many staff you have, emergency, your staff, that's devoted to the pandemic?
We have just under 20 people devoted between Medic One and emergency management. We have some augmentation inside the emergency coordination center, and we've been activated since March 3rd. But so we have pretty much almost 100% of the department is dedicated to the COVID response.
Wow. All right. Thank you, sir. Get on with life now.
Thank you.
And as a review, the Board of County Commissioners meeting for May have been canceled. And so we're going to get into the week of May 26th, review all the items that will be coming up next week. But we are going to start. Do we have Public Works staff online and attending, Ramiro?
To review the items?
No, for the Public Works proclamation.
The proclamation comes later on your agenda, Commissioner. So I believe Public Works is watching, but I see that Jennifer Walker just joined.
I know, but we talked about moving this up to the top since they,
Yeah, but I don't know if Jennifer had a staff join in, maybe later, now.
I have Kevin Patching here, yes. So we are prepared to do the proclamation or our agenda items or however the board would like to proceed.
well, let's do the proclamation then. So we're not
Okay.
holding up any staff.
Okay. Jennifer Walker, Public Works Director. So as is our, oh, good, you got your hat, good.
Yeah.
Those were personalized too,
I
so
saw
very
that.
good.
I don't know if we want to show that, do we?
Very nice.
Very nice.
I hope this
Okay.
doesn't mess up my already messed up hair.
So as is our tradition, we like to highlight the, very nice, Robin, we like to highlight the varied careers within Public Works. And so this year, we have selected Kevin Patching, who's our utilities supervisor. Kevin manages our water and wastewater operations and has been with the department since 2013. Kevin has a team of 4 utilities operators, and they're responsible for the water and wastewater services to over 800 county residents in the communities of Boston Harbor, Tamashan, Olympic View, and Grand Mound. And these are 24/7 operations. So not only are they doing just the day-to-day maintenance and operations activities for our systems, but they're also responding to emergencies that happen, and they're generally happening in the wee hours, or in this case, we actually had one happen on Easter Sunday, where they are repairing pipes that break and having to do at times like digging out, at times with their hands digging out in trenches. So they are very, very dedicated and show a lot of ingenuity in how they resolve issues and address some of the challenges that are out in the field. And so they are certainly the reason we celebrate our public work professionals. And so at this time, I will invite Kevin Patching to say a few words about this year's National Public Works Week theme, and then also announce our request to the board for a proclamation. So Kevin.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Kevin Patching, the Utilities Supervisor for Thurston County Public Works. I am a proud Public Works employee. I'm here to announce the theme for National Public Works Week 2020. The theme is titled, The Rhythm of Public Works. It challenges us to think about our communities as a symphony of essential services working in concert to create a great place to live. Although the Rhythm of Public Works theme was created before COVID-19, it is uniquely appropriate. The pandemic has, has changed the rhythm of our lives, yet we continue to work in concert with one another to deliver the services our communities need to thrive. We keep our communities moving by providing an orchestra of essential services. We operate treatment facilities for water, wastewater, and stormwater. We maintain and operate transportation routes, public buildings and spaces, parks and grounds, solid waste, and right-of-ways. We also provide the harmony needed for collaboration with all the stakeholders in capital projects, infrastructure solutions, and quality of life services. On behalf of Thurston County Public Works, we hope that you will consider the proclamation before you, proclaiming May 17th through the 23rd as National Public Works Week. Thank you.
Amen.
Ready, Mr. Chair?
Yes, I am. And then we'll have comments after. Thank you.
Very good. National Public Works Week. Whereas for over 50 years, the 4th week in May has been designated as National Public Works Week. And whereas public works infrastructure, facilities, and services are of vital importance to the health, safety, and well-being of the citizens of Thurston County. And whereas such infrastructure and facilities include more than 1,000 miles of roadway, 138 bridges, countywide stormwater systems, 106 miles of sidewalks, 2,645 acres of parks land, 57 miles of river, 56 miles of trails, 3 water systems, 4 wastewater systems, and 3 solid waste facilities. And whereas such facilities and services for the citizens of Thurston County could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of approximately 200 Thurston County Public Works professionals who design, build, operate, and maintain them. And whereas Thurston County Public Works has received full reaccreditation from the American Public Works Association and national recognition as builders of award-winning road and fish passage projects. And whereas it is in the public interest for all citizens of this county to gain knowledge of and to display a progressive interest in the public works needs and programs of their respective communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Thurston County Board of Commissioners proclaims the week of May 17th to 23rd, 2020 as National Public Works Week and urges citizens to join in recognizing the substantial contributions public works professionals make to protect our health, safety, and quality of life. Adopted this 19th day of May, 2020 Board of County Commissioners.
Yay. Commissioner Edwards, any comments?
No, I don't want to go into length on this, but there is one thing that I think that the public doesn't realize. They never get to see these folks in action, and consequently, they take everything for granted. But just think of all the upkeep and activities are going on behind the scenes on a daily basis. We might have a minor inconvenience of a flagger holding us up for a few minutes, but just think of everything that these folks do on a regular basis, and please tell them thank you when you come across these folks, because they are unsung heroes. Thank you very much.
And slow down. Commissioner Menzer, anything?
The Public Works Department, we get a lot of input from citizens as commissioners, and I probably have more positive input about the Public Works crews and their work than any other group. I just, there's an occasional complaint like there is about anything, but I'd say incredibly, it's like I often get communications from citizens that are like, great work by the crews. They did things respectfully. They did things thoroughly. They let us know what was going on. I mean, it just happens frequently enough that it gives me great confidence in our group. So, and Kevin, thanks for the tour you gave me of your facility. That was super interesting, and I enjoyed meeting your team. So, thanks guys.
I would add that Kevin, I think it was 2017 or 18, you took me out, and we toured all around the entire county, from Grand Mound to Boston Harbor, and it was a good time. I learned a lot, and you're a good egg. You're a good guy. So thank you for that. I know these novelty hats, are these real?
They're real.
They're real.
They
Okay.
came from
I
our
didn't
image.
even
They
feel
are
that.
real.
I would like to just restate one item, one of the whereases, and that is you've received full accreditation from the American Public Works Association. And in years past, I would work on accrediting police or law enforcement agencies in the state. And it takes years to become accredited. I don't know how many years it took Public Works, but that is a daunting task. And that raises the level of professionalism the Public Works and all the employees. It sets a new standard, it's a new bar. And I award you for that. I compliment you on that. And the national recognition as builders of award-winning road and fish passage projects. And not only state and national, but international awards for that work that you have done. I love that. I think it's pretty doggone cool. Very impressive for our capital county of Thurston. And again, I would encourage people, when you see the road crews and such out, please slow down. You can speed up afterwards, but slow down, okay? Ramiro Chavez, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. For some reason, this helmet just fits right.
Is that your previous helmet?
But I'd like to probably, more of hypothetical questions. This morning, when all of us got up, we turned our lights on, we brushed our teeth, we took a shower, We flush our toilets. For those who had to come to work, we drove safe roads. We stop at the traffic lights, and we continue to move on with our lives with no hurdles per se. And all of that is because of the dedication of the public works professionals. Because as Commissioner Edwards stated, those are the unsung heroes. They work diligently to provide those services to our citizens. Sometimes goes unnoticed. Sometimes it doesn't. But most of all is the pride to wear orange on a day-to-day basis. So thank you very much for everything that you do. Jennifer, you have a fantastic crew and you're a fantastic leader. And Kevin, thank you for joining us. You're an awesome dude.
Absolutely. And you know how to rock those bots, dots, and rumble strips. My hats off to you for that.
I've been seeing improvements.
Yeah, good. Nice to hear that. And thank you for the helmet. That's pretty doggone cool.
Our pleasure. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you for the support. Good job, Kevin.
Thank you.
Good job, Kevin. Thank you, Jennifer. And now we're getting into our week of May 26th in review, or for the preview. So number one is the amendment number 2 to the yard debris collection site service agreement.
Yeah,
Yes, thank
I was just having my drink here.
Yeah, I saw that.
So Jennifer is online, as well as Mark Roy is online. And this is related to the executive session that you had on April 21st, 2020. And this is what I call is the third leg of the stool related to the different contracts that we have on the solid waste side of the public works business. This contract is related to the organics agreement that we have with LeMay. And the intent of this amendment is to align to the other 2 agreements that we have, that you already approved amendments. So we can align to for another 3 years with the option to extend on a yearly basis for an additional 2 years. The intent, again, is this third amendment, again, is related to the organics portion of the business, and it is to align those 3 major contracts, and hopefully we can consolidate those contracts when we go through the request for proposals to secure services for all the needs within the solid waste. Jennifer's here to answer any questions, if you have any.
Commissioner Edwards, any questions?
No, and we are gonna be voting on this next week, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there any change in the fee structure, or is this just an extension of the contract?
I think we have some changes on the fee. Jennifer?
There was we had a lengthy negotiation, and the fee structure was changed. So we are at $75 a ton for the organics, and we'll have a 3% CPI. The agreement, well, go ahead.
And that was mutually agreed on by the time the negotiations were done?
Yes.
And those are pretty much the same terms of their 2 amendments that we just processed with the board. That has a new fee structure as well as this escalation based on the CPI, correct?
The CPI is a little bit different, but the length of the agreements are the same.
Commissioner Mentor, go ahead.
$75 a ton from what previously?
From $60.69 a ton.
And being that we've got some prices on the table, that has not been adjusted since when?
They have been CPI adjustments that have occurred annually.
Okay, but
the original agreement was entered into in 2012,
okay, so that has
or 2014, excuse me.
and it's been increasing then incrementally up to this $75 or that you finally negotiated with, is that right?
It was increasing incrementally up to the $60.69.
Okay,
And then we negotiated this last extension.
okay.
To what was the total of that one?
The new rate is $75.
75? Okay. Thank you. Got it, okay. Doesn't look like there's one of the questions. All right. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Item number 2, bid award.
Thank you for your considerations, Commissioner. This is an item the board has reviewed in the past, and it's related to install the sand shed at the Tilly campus. The board authorized to go out to bid, and as a result, on May 4th, 2020, we received 14 bids. That's encouraging and kind of unusual to have that many, at least from my point of view. And the low bidder was Rutsky Incorporated of Vancouver, Washington. The low bid was $979,418.91. The current budget that we have allocated for this project is $1,416,000. So we had a great low bidder. Also, the engineer's estimate was from $1,160,000 to $1,300,000. That was the range. So the low bid came way under the engineer's estimate as well. So the department is requesting for you to consider awarding the contract again to Rutsky Incorporated, Vancouver, Washington, for a total of $1,163,549.66, which includes a 10% contingency to address any unexpected items during construction.
All right, any questions? Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, and I might add that that also includes the Washington state sales tax that goes along with that. I do have a question, and possibly this is for the county manager. Does the funding for this project come out of the road fund?
Yeah, that's correct, sir.
I guess my only comment at this time, because I have voted against this in the past, and I probably intend to do so as well on this issue, is we have upcoming road repair issues and a smaller amount of money going into our road fund because of the virus situation that we find ourselves in. So I personally feel that it makes more sense to delay this project until we find out a little more about where we're at on our financial situation down the road. So just a point of interest. Thank you.
All right, Ty?
Yeah, I guess we discussed this a little bit, like in the very early part of the pandemic, whether or not we would reprioritize or something, but this is kind of rolled on. So I guess I'd like to just ask Jennifer one more time, put her on the spot one more time, and just ask whether get where we sit today, does it, and knowing what your resources are and what the needs for the roads are, the things that Commissioner Edwards just mentioned, has your priority for this project changed anyway, or you're still asking us to move this forward based on our more limited resources than we had a month ago, let's say? I just like to get your confirmation.
And before you answer, please be very frank with us as we're setting priorities all across the county, please.
Sure. So from my perspective, we have to be ready, right? We need to be operationally ready. This allows us, this is a piece of that. This has been on the table to be moved. And we also have a parking lot that's also a part of this. But I do see this as continuing to be a priority because it's how we operate. It helps improve our operations, and it's in internal operations, but also what we're responsive to during emergency events. So I do still see it as needing to be done.
Emergency events like floods, washout, burst pipes, things like any kind of what's the name?
It's our sand shed. So when we are filling up the trucks and the operations and moving around through there, yes, it's needed. We've got county vehicles, personal vehicles, and our heavy trucks all in the same area with where it is right now. It is not a good flow.
And there's sufficient capacity in the road fund.
Yeah, we have it budgeted, yes.
Okay, Gary?
I guess I would just like to say that we've been contending with the situation that we're in today for at least the last 10 years, I believe. We've been talking about making this change. And I just think our situation has dramatically changed because of this virus. I know I get weekly complaints about road condition on a roadway out near where I live in the community that I'm at, that it could certainly use that money to fix that road. And so I just think this is a mistake to move forward at this point in time with a project that is not absolutely necessary. So that's good. I've made my point.
If we did not move this motion forward, what would that 1.1 million go to? Would it just sit, or would it be used elsewhere? Or diverted elsewhere?
That would be up to you.
I realize that.
I guess from my perspective, I've outlined that I do think it's a priority, that I do think we need to have it done, that our prices aren't going to get any better than what they are now, that it improves our internal operations and our readiness for services to the community. So that, Commissioner, you asked me for my perspective, and that is that.
Okay.
Commissioners, also tomorrow during the budget briefing, hopefully we'll have some time to walk you through all the many different projects the public works has. So you have a more global perspective. What is state in terms of priorities, and this project is one of those.
And that'll be Friday?
No, tomorrow.
So tomorrow, that'll be part of tomorrow's 4-hour briefing?
Yeah,
Okay. All right, good, thank you.
if we have time.
Being as we don't know if we're gonna have time, because we always get short of time, I guess I don't feel we're ever gonna be able to buy asphalt any cheaper than we're able to get it right now, because the price of oil is so low. So again, that's just my little plug for what I feel is a common sense approach to a long-term problem that we've been tolerating for quite a few years without any major problems. Thank you.
And as you said, we don't have time, or may not have time to discuss it even tomorrow. And if this has been 10 years in the making, and we've discussed it as commissioners, Commissioner Edwards and I for the last 3 years, and now we're waiting for a pandemic to do something. I'm not sure when that's going to be the next appropriate time without kicking it further out into the future. So that'd be a good discussion for tomorrow, or for, tomorrow then.
So,
All right, move on. Go ahead.
So what I'm hearing is I'll bring this item for your final consideration next week.
Yeah, and we'll discuss it further tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Number 3, grants for the Salmon Recovery Funding Board.
This request is for the board to authorize pursuing a couple of grants in the total of $2,920,000. And this is for 2 projects, the Butler Creek Crossing at French Road, and also at the Green Cove Culvert and the Country Club Road. Those two projects are related to the Fish Passage Enhancement Program. The board has authorized in the past using real estate excise tax too. When the board determines and assign the REIT dollars, also, I believe the board was stating that they would like to see there's a seed money to secure outside grants, and this is an attempt to do that and meet the intent of the board. The grants, the department is asking for you to authorize is one from the Salmon Recovery Funding Board, which is the SRFB, and which is administered by the Conservation Office, which is the RCO. The uniqueness of those grant applications is the legislative authority needs to take a formal action to authorize the applications for these grants. And this is really what the request for you today is.
Okay. Questions?
No, sir.
Go ahead, Ty.
The Butler Creek crossing, is this like the next most important culvert project on our spreadsheet, or is there something about this one that makes it eligible for these particular funds?
I believe is more the eligibility of the funds that dictates those locations.
Okay, and do you happen to know what
I know.
the criteria is that leads to that particular culvert?
Yeah, I don't know if Jennifer has the rating of the program itself, where those two locations fit within the overall rating. But I believe those two locations were designated because they meet the specific criteria of the funding source.
Jesse, you're on the line, correct? Do you want to talk about that and the priority?
Yeah, so this is Jesse with Public Works. Both of these culverts rank fairly high. I think French Road it's in the top 10. It might even be in the top 5. I would have to double check that. But so we've been looking at these two projects for a while now, but they're going to be very expensive. So that's why we would like to go for these grants to leverage our REIT funding.
Got it. Thank you.
Very nice. Gary, anything?
No, sir. I think we're headed in the right direction.
Great. Jennifer and Jesse, thank you very much. And we'll be able to get through just the next couple, and then we'll take a break. We did proclamations. We have one. Say, okay, proclamations, awards. Anything further on proclamations and awards, Ramiro?
No, sir. Nothing on the pipeline.
And advisory boards and commissions.
Yes, we do have an item for you to consider. A couple of items.
Yes.
Is that the drainage ditch?
Yeah, Amy's going to walk us through that.
Okay.
Yes, we have 4 appointments to go over today. The first is Thomas Thorning to the Hopkins Drainage Ditch District 2. We received some feedback from Elizabeth, and to summarize that, just a few points. The board does make this appointment to fill the vacancy, which would go through February of 2022. And this applicant does meet the 2 required prereqs of being a registered voter and property owner within the district. And Matt Jackman, chair of the Ditch District, mentioned that he was the only interested applicant at their last landowners meeting. And so they do ask that we move forward with the appointment.
Okay. And any discussion or comments regarding Thomas Thorning? Gary?
I'm curious, is there interaction between this ditch district and our public works folks in any fashion? I mean, I think of, stormwater and different things like that might be involved. And I'm curious, that's all. Do we have an interaction? Maybe the county manager knows, or maybe Jennifer would know the answer to that.
I think she left, but I can probably answer that. Certainly there is coordination with any particular project that we have related to stormwater, the drainage district. The drainage district is different junior district, they have their own means and methods to collect revenue and do their own projects. But coordination does align with what we do in terms of the county public works, surface water, as well as the districts. So there is a coordination in terms of project specifics, but and again, that's an independent junior district.
Okay, thank you.
Anything, Ty?
Yes. So if I understand this, is this, I don't know much about a drainage district. Is it sort of like, kind of like with the lake districts where they could sort of tax themselves to do projects that maybe the county couldn't afford to do? Is that what this is about? They create a district and raise and tax themselves in order to do more comprehensive stormwater management projects or something? What?
Similar, but different. On the lake management districts that you mentioned, the Board of County Commissioners, the legislative authority, process the creation of those districts through a specific sequence of steps. The drainage districts are governed by a different RCW, which the commissioners are elected by the drainage district boundary voters within that district. So the reason that is before you is because one of those positions who was elected has been vacated, and it's been vacated for many years. So your legislative authority appoints that individual until the next election. So it is similar to the lake management districts, but the structure is different.
Well, yeah, and I'm not so much talking about this governance structure, but I mean, what's the point of it? What's the purpose? The purpose is to try to do what?
So what they do is really they manage the portions of the stormwater, which is that are located in a very designated ditches. They manage that water through that conveyance element is the ditch itself. And within that district itself, they have many ditches they manage.
What concerns me about this is that this could be a complete coincidence, but we had a series of emails from this Mr. Jackman and a series of very long technical emails about how we're doing this wrong, we're violating the law, pretty aggressive accusations about how we're going about things. And then immediately in the wake of not getting a response, we've got this, all of a sudden they've proffered a candidate for this position that's been unfilled for years and years and years. There may be no connection between those two things, or there may be a connection. I don't know, but that's what, and again, I don't know who's right or wrong. He could be completely right. I don't know anything about the legal framework here, but I'm worried that that there's some political dynamic going on that we're not aware of or that we don't see. And if we don't do our due diligence to kind of connect the dots, we're going to be sorry about it later. I just worried about that because I just don't know enough.
Anything like possibly a public hearing or something like that prior to making an appointment. I just don't want to do anything wrong, and I'm wondering if there's a push on this time-wise, because if it's been vacant for a while, again, I've got no dog in the fight. I just want to do it right. And so I'm kind of following along with Commissioner Menzer on making sure we get assurances from our legal representative from the prosecuting attorney's office that we're doing it 100% right. I don't want to do it 95% right.
Well, it seems like this is kind of odd or convenient, coincidental that the stars are aligning right now over this issue. So I'd like to see what or know what it is behind the scenes. I know there's something behind the scenes. I just don't know what it. Hang on, Romero, go ahead, please.
So to answer Commissioner Edwards' question, we did check with Elizabeth. She's online, and you do not need a public hearing to make this appointment. Secondly, I wasn't ready to bring those issues together, but since Commissioner Mensah did brought that issue, maybe I can frame some of the feedback that we received from Mr. Jackman on the last couple of months. And just for the benefit of the viewing public, he sent to the board, maybe I'll say probably a couple of months ago, a long letter stating and outlining several RCWs in which he makes the point of that we have been charging stormwater fees, which we are, and he believes that perhaps the stormwater fees should be given to the drainage district, and with a retroactive approach, that we have been stepping outside of the legal bounds in collecting those fees, and perhaps that we are required to give portions of the stormwater fees to the drainage district. That was, in so many words, the letter that you received. We responded accordingly, and that response was included a prosecuting attorney's review and perspective, which the county wholeheartedly disagreed with his legal perspective and his request for us to pay the drainage district's back fees in a way. That's my word. So that letter was sent to Mr. Jackman, and again, maybe a month or plus ago. Obviously, he did not like that answer, and he submitted another letter that he was waiting until the COVID-19 emergency was subsiding for him to take next actions. I don't know what those actions will be. I believe our response letter to him was very clear and very specific in terms of what governs the stormwater fees and why the county is not in the position to be required to provide those fees. I did share that letter with Elizabeth when she was reviewing this request. So in a way, it's a little bit different, two different issues. Whether it's something connecting the dots as to why this came to your attention right now, I am not in the position to answer that.
Right, Ty?
Why don't we have him call into a Zoom meeting one Tuesday, and we can ask him a few questions about who he is and why he wants to be on this district and what is. I mean, I had to be I was interviewed by one of the commissioners before I was allowed to be on the Water Conservancy Board. I've done phone interviews with candidates before. It's kind of unusual, but to me, this is a somewhat unusual situation in that I don't really understand the district that well. Number two, we've had this series of letters and controversy. So I just don't want to just rubber stamp somebody and then find out it causes us more problems down the road than if we just spent 5 minutes asking the guy questions. With Zoom meeting, he could just call and he doesn't have to get out of bed. That's my suggestion.
Okay, let's go to Elizabeth. Did you have something to add, Elizabeth?
No, sorry. Other than I agree that there's no public hearing process necessary, and I do believe it's within your discretion to interview potential candidates.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to that, but I don't remember us ever doing that in the past, or that I can recall. And does that throw a wrench into anything as to setting a precedent that we're not doing it for others, but we're doing it for him? We're not doing it for any of the boards, we're doing it for this one and such?
Perhaps not, Commissioner, because this is a different board. It's not a county commissioner's board or commission that you receive applications and you make those assignments. It's a little bit different. This is because of an elected position who has been vacated, and you, as legislative authority of the county, makes that appointment. It's a little bit different. So if the board decides to have an interview, I don't believe you will set a precedent to any other assignments of boards and commissions.
Okay. I'm okay interviewing him, sure, that's a good idea. Before we just jump and make a, like you said, rubber stamp or recommendations. Anything, go ahead, Gary, anything else?
Yeah, is there any reason that we do need to hurry? I mean, is there
No.
something pending? Any reason?
No.
Okay,
No.
I guess I might just point out over the years, it seems like oftentimes there's not much scrutiny around junior taxing districts until there is. In other words, something happens and then why did you do this or how did this happen? So I think it behooves us to be cautious as we move forward. And if we could get a little more information, it'd be better.
Now you got me to something else, if I may. If related to junior districts, particularly to drainage districts, the legislature passed a bill and the governor approved. And in terms of when a Danish drainage district or junior districts are not able to be audited by the state auditor, that means the financial situation is such they will not be able to exist. That requirement will come back to the county to manage it. That bill passed. As you may recall, we opposed that bill. And that was because it was bringing those financial issues per se to the county to deal with. But that is the current state law. And that was, I believe, a reflection to some of the mismanagement of some of the drainage districts up in North counties on the Puget Sound. And that was, I think, the underlying issue as to why this bill was introduced by the state auditor, and the legislature passed, I believe, on an overwhelming majority, and the government passed. So there is a little bit of that sense related to what you stated, Commissioner.
I think that was up at King County and Enumclaw District, I think.
I didn't want to name the specifics, but it was. Yeah.
Well, I'm just a little gun shy myself. I want to help them, but I want to help them correctly.
This is good.
We have time to do this.
Okay.
This is good conversation. So what I'm hearing is we'll organize a Zoom meeting with the candidate for your consideration, whether it's next week or the following week, but we'll be working on that.
Ramiro, what did you say was the trigger under this new law? What's the trigger for that to fall on the county?
If the state auditor determines those districts are unauditable.
Unauditable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you get what you needed, Ramiro?
Yes, sir. So I'll work with Amy to see if we can schedule something with the candidate.
Okay. PIO check-in.
There's a couple more.
Oh, there is.
Okay, so next we have a request from Casey Kramer, who is chair of the Storm and Surface Water Advisory Board. So their requests are to first adjust an appointment for Jacqueline Simmons from an at-large member to a District 2 member. Then to appoint Carla Sabota to the vacant at-large appointment. And then to appoint Britt Netterhood to the vacant District 3 appointment that they have. So both new applicants, Ms. Netterhood and Ms. Sabota, attended their April 23rd meeting to introduce themselves and share their interests and background. The board then discussed the applicants at their May 7th meeting and unanimously recommend that these appointments be made and that the one position for Jacqueline Simmons be adjusted.
All right. Any comments or questions?
No, this is the first time you've seen those applications, commissioners, and this recommendation, so I'd recommend for you to read them. If you have any questions, let us know, and we'll bring this item maybe next week and for your consideration. And again, if you have any questions, please let us know.
And I don't know these applicants other than Britt Netterhood when he was an educator, school administrator in the Olympia School District. But I don't know any of the other folks. So yeah, we will we'll look at this and come back next week with it. All right, PIO check-in. Is it Brian or is it Megan?
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer for the board. Megan Porter, our Public Information Supervisor, is back in the office on Tuesdays here in the Commissioner's office, starting today, so we're excited about that. She's been helping our Public Health Department get information out about COVID-19 to our community. She'll continue to do that, but she'll also be here on Tuesdays working with us. Megan's also working with our Central Services and Public Works departments to install signage around county facilities about COVID-19. And then the county is going to be closed on Monday, May 25th in observance of Memorial Day. I'm working on getting some information out to the community regarding the holiday closure. That's this next Monday coming up. And the release of our weekly newsletter, the Friday 5, is continuing, and we have seen a steady increase in subscribers for this community resource, so that's exciting. If anyone is interested in subscribing, they can visit our county news page, which is accessible from our homepage, and our 6th issue is going to go out on Friday at about 2 p.m. And I have a few updates from the Census Bureau I'd like to share. Thurston County is still in the top 5 for census response across all counties in Washington. And we surpassed our 2010 response rate, but we still have a bit of ways to go. We're at 68.5% now. So to get a complete count, we got to get some more. So if anyone hasn't responded to the census yet, they can visit my2020census.gov or call 1-844-330-2020 to respond or request a questionnaire. And there's been a rumor going around the country that census responses might be used to determine eligibility for government benefits, including any potential stimulus package. This is not true. The Census Bureau has a rumors page that people can check at 2020census.gov, and they provide updated information there regularly. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
I saw it on Facebook.
So must be true.
It only takes 10 minutes to answer 10 questions and you're in and out. So I would encourage people to do that. I have a couple questions, but I'll go to my seatmates first. Gary?
No, sir.
Hi?
Nope.
Wow. When is the Insider article due, Brian?
Brian?
I'm checking my calendar, sorry.
Sorry.
The right date.
Wow.
I have May 29th.
Yeah, what?
May 29th, Commissioner.
May 29th, okay. And thank you for bringing up that this weekend is Memorial Day weekend. And typically, after a 3-day weekend, we don't have a BoCC meeting on Tuesday. But these are different circumstances now. And I see it's on the calendar. Do you want to have a discussion about that? I don't see why not. Well, we can have one. I don't mean discussion, but have a meeting. But let's hear from my seatmates. Okay, that was brief. Romero?
Commissioner, will you consider a break?
You mean I take a break?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but I'm gonna figure out whether we're gonna have a meeting on May 26th or not. After the
No,
weekend.
you canceled the board meetings on formal board meetings. I'm expecting to still have the agenda setting on Tuesday morning.
So we'll still do that. Okay, then. Perfect.
Yeah, we do have items to discuss at that meeting.
All right, there's no legislative update?
No, sir.
Good. Now we're taking a 10-minute break, 10 minutes. I've got 10:25. We'll be back at 10:35. We're in recess. Thank you. Welcome back to the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session for May 19, 2020. And we're going to push through our legislative agenda right now for today. And then we're going to take a break at 10:55 so that we can all watch the Governor Inslee's statement that he's going to give. And then we will reconvene and finish the rest of the agenda. So moving into the briefings and our decision making. Number one is we already did that. No, yeah, proclamation. We did that. Yay. So we did number two, the proclamation for Law Enforcement Week. So we're jumping down to number three, IT director to purchase video system.
Yeah, commissioners, you reviewed this item in the past, and Dennis Osorio, which is online right now, give you a perspective of all the many different IT projects that we have in place. Some they have been put on hold, and also this particular item, I believe the board decided to move forward. And what it does is going to be replacing the existing camera system in the courts. And I at least from my perspective, this is very timely to continue with this project. As we know, although this project was in the works, but the current emergency has put us in the position to expedite this project to allow the courts to conduct their business a little more efficiently, yet maintaining social distancing, at least in the months, if not years to come. So this is really going to be providing an additional tool for the courts to conduct virtual meetings. And in fact, yesterday, talking with Judge Buckley from District Court, he was mentioning that perhaps a court in Texas is going to start conducting actually trials, virtual trials using, the media, the virtual media. So even, moving away from hopefully soon with the emergency, the conducting of core business is going to change, I believe, and I believe the judges are prepared to do that. And again, this is an additional tool to provide the courts with that flexibility. And Dennis is here to answer any questions if you have any additional concerns or questions.
Ty, any questions?
I don't know if I have a questions. I mean, if for folks that haven't been tracking this all along, we did, when this was brought forward a few weeks ago, I think all three commissioners kind of wanted to pause and say we actually paused so that we could get a comprehensive overview of all the IT projects so that we could make sure that this was super high priority. I mean, everyone can make a good case for a particular project, but it kind of needed to be put in context why this is particularly important, both from an IT needs perspective as well as our COVID-19 realities that we're going to have to deal with in court. So it wasn't an easy decision because we're trying to, be responsible and pause unnecessary major projects at this point. But this is one that I'm willing to go forward on based on the prior briefings we've had.
Did you say you are?
I am.
Okay. Gary, go ahead.
I guess, yes, I wanted to find out more information about this, but since then I've been involved in several budget discussions and I am having second thoughts about this and no reflection on Dennis because I think he's doing a great job on keeping things running in an adverse situation. But here we are in this meeting today and we're doing a Zoom meeting, for an example. And we're all learning to do Zoom and virtual activities much better than we ever did in the past. And I think it's going to become more of a norm in the future. And the total expenditure out of our current expense budget is going to be close to $1 million, possibly. I know it's only 800,000 here, but talks about 10% possibly overrun or whatever. But nonetheless, spending $1 million when we're talking about having a shortfall of $5 million and the possibility we might end up having to lay people off, I'm just not ready to move forward on this myself at this time. Again, mainly because I don't know exactly where we're at. In every budget discussion we have, it appears we're just a little worse off than the one we had before, and it scares the dickens out of me. And I realize we're running out of time with some of the technical equipment that we do have. It's not supported anymore, and it's timed out, and I guess we've actually had some problems. But I'm almost wondering if we can't possibly make use of what private enterprise offers us to conduct business, and our meeting today is a good example of that. It's not perfect, far from perfect. I'm not crazy about it at all, and we had a little bit of audio trouble early on with our Department of Health director. But I just have to say, I am not willing to move forward on this at this point in time. So I just wanted to state my case, if you will. I'm a little worried yet.
Okay. Robin, where's this coming out of, R&R, or where's this coming out of?
So part of the funding has already been deposited in the large IT system reserve, and the balance would be from the general fund over time to pay back the IT reserve.
Okay. Hearing what you've heard from the judges, and in speaking with our Thurston Mason Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization yesterday, they've had numerous, I don't want to say 50 or 100, but they've had a ton of Involuntary Treatment Act hearings done via video, which has been a tremendous amount of savings and administering justice to folks, by and large, haven't committed a crime. So I'm ready to move on with this because of those reasons. We can't stop the courts from administering justice. This isn't just it's not a frivolous type expenditure, in my opinion. Go ahead, Ty.
So I just wanted to clarify. My understanding was that part of Commissioner Edwards' point that and I share many of the concerns he expressed, but the reason I'm willing to go forward on this one is that my understanding is that the fact that we're doing this kind of meeting, the court, if we don't upgrade the court's, infrastructure on this, they won't be able to do this, and we're going to end up spending money for renting, warehouses to do courts, and the opportunities to manage the requirements, the physical distancing requirements are not going to be there if we don't have systems of video cameras and systems that are operational. And my notes from our meeting a couple weeks ago said that there's major pieces of this system that are no longer supported and could basically be defunct at any moment. And meanwhile, we have needs to upgrade, and then there's issues about how that interacts with the jail, so that we can actually get these hearings going in this type of virtual platform. So I think that that's kind of part of what this is about, or for me, why this makes some sense in light of all the concerns that I share with Commissioner Edwards.
Yeah. Okay. Dennis?
Dennis Osorio, IT Director. And yeah, I would just like to echo that. Obviously, the current system was put in 2012. It has passed end of life. The new system will allow more integration into such tools as Zoom, Teams, Skype, so we can hold virtual court if we need to, with much more tools in our tool shed, essentially. And then just to touch on the cost, the $799, does include a 10% contingency already included in that cost.
Okay.
Commissioner Edwards has a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Gary.
I guess in conclusion, we're going to move on here, it sounds like. I do think that I guess I'd like to hear why we couldn't have a trial today by Zoom if we absolutely had to do that. I'm not advocating for that. I'm sympathetic to what the judges need. I'm just scared to death. We just sent a memo out to all elected officials, and and all department directors, and we told them, you know, put together a budget with a 15% reduction. I know we're hoping that we don't have to go that far, but the reality is we don't know what we're up against yet. And that's why I'm hesitant to move forward on this, because of the don't know. Because once we do it, then we can't say, oh, King's X, I'd like to rethink that and give me that $800,000 back. It doesn't work that way. So why could not we do a Zoom trial today? I've been in Zoom meetings where we've had, I don't know, I think we had like 30 people or something participating. So I'm just curious.
All right, and this isn't the first time this has come up or that we've discussed this.
I know.
Go ahead, Robin, and then I'll get to Dennis.
It's my understanding that district court tried, maybe not a trial, but they did a procedure on Skype. And during the process, they were shut down. And Jennifer Crichton is here. She could probably tell us more about that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
It was
Now, introduce yourself, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Jennifer Creighton, District Court Administrator. Good morning. It was actually YouTube that shut us down, and so that's sort of a separate issue. We still don't exactly know why. The problem that we have right now, yes, we are conducting court by Zoom. We're doing a lot of remote hearings, but what we have done is to take 3 separate laptops. We line them up on the judge's bench. We put a microphone that goes to the old system next to it, and then we hope that everything gets to that recording system appropriately. We can't do any more integration than that. And not only is the equipment old and at end of life, and we have issues with it regularly, having a system where we're just basically putting it together with baling wire is not going to be sustainable in the long run. And we're only doing that temporarily while we're waiting for the new product to be installed.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Dennis, go ahead.
One more thing, the current room that the Commissioner Edwards and Romero is in, it was updated this year. I think with the previous system, you would have had issues as well with Zoom. So you would have been sitting in a very similar concept. You probably would both just be looking at Romero's laptop as opposed to using the infrastructure that's built into the room.
Okay, good point. Quickly, Gary.
Okay, just so we can move on. I guess I would advocate that Dennis is a magician in my mind. He's able to do things that I have no understanding about, and I've got a lot of faith in him. Maybe he can, maybe he can't patch this together. I don't know the answer to that. But I would advocate we at least let's just wait a couple of weeks. We're going into some very serious budget negotiations in which we're contemplating cuts up to 15%, laying people off. I just see a lot of heartache coming, and I would rather be sure to, I'm in favor of doing this, but I just can't do it right now. Why can't we wait a couple of weeks? That's all.
Hey, Dennis, what will be the downfall of waiting a couple of weeks?
Well, I think Jennifer or some of the stakeholders would probably be able to answer that a little bit better. But like she said, they're kind of holding court right now with bubblegum and shoestring, if you will, right? I mean, it's working, but it's definitely not scalable. And if things start to reopen and that gets broader, you know, we start holding more courts, I think with the current setup, it's not going to work.
So just hypothetical question, Dennis, if the board approves this project today, when those improvements will be in place?
Well, we'll be working with the stakeholders to move much quicker than the original project plan, obviously, since now there's a much more need to get it done quickly. And obviously, if there's a smaller gap before they completely gear up, but we'll be working with the stakeholders as well as the vendor. I don't have an exact timeline yet since there's a lot of unknowns in that. I don't want to disrupt court as well, so we need to kind of try to fit in the weekends probably and the downtime that we can to get that updated.
Jennifer, did you have something to add?
I was just going to make a note, Commissioner, about the scalability. We have noticed from Tumwater Police Department that they're going to move their defendants down to Lewis County Jail. They're they're ending their contract with Nisqually Tribal Jail. And in order to do that, we need to be able to use this new system to also connect to Lewis County Jail.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Yeah, yes. Why they would move to Lewis County Jail and not talk to Thurston County Jail is something we'll need to explore. But
Yeah.
I am ready to make a motion to authorize the Information Technology Director to purchase a replacement court video system and associated cabling not to exceed $799,379, including a 10% contingency.
I'll second that. It's been moved and seconded to authorize the Information Technology Director to purchase replacement court video system. Any discussion? Any further discussion?
No, sir.
I agree with Commissioner Edwards' assessment that even the optics look kind of odd at this point in time, but I just see this as a definite necessity that must be done. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that motion carries. And number 4, the voucher list.
Yeah, this is your weekly voucher list for the week of May 4th, which has a total combined amount of $1,639,449.97. I have not received any questions from the commissioners, but if you do have questions, we can certainly delay this item to answer the questions that you may have.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Nope.
I have questions on the next set of vouchers that I'll, but not this set.
Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the voucher list for the week of May 4th, 2020 for a combined amount of $1,639,449.97.
Second.
It's been moved and approved, second rather, to approve the voucher list for the week of May 4th. Any changes to that? Polls? Nope, nothing. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, opposed? All right, that motion carries. And let's move into commissioner items real quick. We have about a 2 minutes. Orca follow-up.
Yes, I'd like to follow up on the item that you discussed last week related to a proposal from Mr. Eric Casino related for the county to consider pulling out of the Orca. And I'm not gonna go through that. I did that last week, the gist of his request. So as a result of that conversation, I had 3 questions the commissioner asked me to follow up. One was, so how many boards exist related to the clean for the clear air agencies in the state? And you have a map attached in your packet. They outlines all the many different agencies in which how they're for. And you will see the Olympic Clean Air Agency, ORCA. This is where we belong, Thurston County among other an additional 5 counties. Then you have the Northwest Clean Air Agency, Whatcom and Skagit counties. The Puget Sound Clean Air Agency is Snohomish, Kent, and Pierce. Then you have the Southwest Clean Air Agency, which is Lewis, College, Skamania, and Clark. And then you move into the east a little bit different, where Ecology manages larger regions of this, which includes many counties. And there's also some smaller regional air quality agencies. There's a county-wide level as well, and includes Spokane, Yakima, and Benton counties. So that was a question the board asked me to research. At least you have additional questions. That was one question that I needed to bring back to you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
What is the cost to those populations in those particular areas where Ecology covers those counties per capita? So I guess what I'm wondering about, I think ours is 77 cents. What are the citizens in those areas being billed per, the counties being billed per citizen?
Yeah. So that is an additional question. So I have not the answer. I don't have the answer to that. So I can certainly research that. The other question that the board asked me to research was whether if the county pulls out of ORCA, Well, that the ecology will take over, quote unquote, and I believe the information from Mr. Casino said they will do that for free. So I reached out to Mr. Kathy Taylor from the Department of Ecology, and we've had a great conversation.
What was the person's name?
Kathy Taylor.
Did you say Mr. Kathy Taylor?
Miss Kathy.
Miss Kathy, okay.
Kathy Taylor from the Department of Ecology. And I asked the question, and two different things. Whether the ecology will provide those services free to the county. The answer was no, and attached to your packet is a copy of RCW 70.94390, in which the first part of the RCW is the procedures in which the Department of Ecology has to take in order to take that, the responsibility on their own. And also then it states the second part of that RCW specifically states all expenses incurred by the department, that would be the Department of Ecology, in the control and prevention of air pollution in any county pursuant RCW, the provisions 70.94.390, 70.94.410, shall constitute a claim against such county. That means they will have to pay for the services. The department shall certify the expenses to the auditor to the county, who promptly shall issue his or her own warrant on the county treasurer payable out to the current expenses fund by the county. In the event that the amount in the current expense fund of the county is not adequate to meet the expenses incurred by the Department of Ecology, the department shall certify to the state treasurer that has a prior claim and the money related to the liquor excise tax that is apportioned to the county. So the answer to the question whether the Department of Ecology provides those services for free, the answer is no. The next question that I ask is what the $115,000, that is the contribution the county does to Corca, will that cover perhaps the cost? And her response was it will be very unlikely because they have to build up resources, meaning personnel, to manage the requirements of the Clean Air Act. So that's what I have in terms of that question. Second question, the third question was, and I think as Elizabeth is ready to answer, is if the county makes a unilateral decision to pull out of ORCA, will that sole action pull the cities out of that agreement as well? And that was the question.
I'm going to put that on pause because we're 1 minute to 11. And I want to see I think we should see the governor's press conference or his public release. So we're going to go into recess for 30 minutes, and then we'll come back. All right? Got it. Thank you.
honor the life and loss of 65-year-old correctional officer Beresford Anthony Morse of Renton, who we lost to COVID-19 on Sunday. Officer Morse had worked at the Monroe Correctional Facility since 2003. He was most recently at the minimum security unit at the Monroe Correctional Center. We wish his wife Mary and their family all the peace that we can send to that family right now. This was a person who professionally was committed to the safety of the state of Washington. We appreciated his life and work. We also were saddened to learn of the loss of Annie Glenn this morning at age 100, who was married to John Glenn, of course, who was a great advocate for people living with communication disorders during her life. I got to know her just a bit, such a charming person. And the reason I mentioned this is actually the first person I've known personally who we lost to COVID-19. I've had quite a number of people who are relatives, lost relatives, but it just strikes home that this is still an emergency we're dealing with. We are still committed to individual lives. These are not statistics. And I believe the state of Washington needs to continue our course of making good, solid decisions based on science at the right pace as we reopen our state. And we're talking about that effort today. I'm joined today by Secretary of the Department of Health, Secretary John Weisman. He's going to talk about some new opening of more counties in our state, as well as State Health Officer Kathy Lofi. We also have Department of Commerce Secretary Lisa Brown, who's going to be talking about some of the small business grants that we are offering. And we also have Rob Owen from Owen's Grocery in Ponderay County. First off, we have some, I think, some good news for our state. Today we are expanding more opportunities for more states, or more counties, to be able to move to phase 2 of our recovery program. Today we're announcing new criteria that will allow 10 more counties to apply for a variance to allow them to move forward on their phase 2 operations. And they will be eligible to apply if they have less than 10 new cases per 100,000 residents over a 14-day span. This criteria for the next phase of our recovery plan is consistent with the CDC guidelines for opening regions nationwide. This obviously is happily going to allow more economic opportunity for states that can qualify, while still really providing the protections we need for the health of our citizens. So if I can show you the 10 counties that will be eligible to apply for these variances now on the map are Spokane, Adams, Mason, Thurston, Lewis, Clark, Clallam, Kitsap Island, and San Juan counties. We also will show you the graph now of all the counties that are either already have been cleared for phase 2 and the new eligible counties. So as of Monday, we have approved 10 counties to move into phase 2 of our 4-phase Safe Start recovery plan. And that's based on their population and lack of COVID-19 cases. Combined with Jefferson and Grace Harbor counties, which are eligible for a variance but haven't applied as of yet, that makes 22 counties in the state that are currently eligible for a variance upon application or are already moving to phase 2. Combined, these counties represent about 30% of the state's population. As we open up more of our state, I just want to note that our dependence on our local officials in local decision-making will increase, and the need to adhere to our remaining restrictions will obviously be very important for the health of their citizens. Phase 2 has restrictions on activities including crowd sizes as well as mandatory protections for workers. These are very important. These need to be followed so we can save more lives, obviously. And if the local leaders are ready to take on that responsibility, we expect that they'll do so in a very careful and thoughtful way and follow the guidance to keep their citizens safe. I know counties applying want to serve their residents and not just the whole state. One other thing I want to note, that as we open up some of our counties on a more county-based metric, it really is important for people not to overload those smaller, frequently smaller communities in their restaurants or otherwise. It's really a time to remain close to home, and we know some of these smaller communities have tried to reiterate that with us so that they are not overwhelmed. So I hope people can keep that in mind. So now I'd like to turn it over to John Weisman, who can talk more about this application process, which will allow these designated counties to apply for a variance that we can then look to make sure they're ready to go. So, John.
Good morning, Governor. Thank you for that, and hello, everyone. The application process for these next set of counties is essentially the same process as we had before, in that the process starts with the local health officer recommending to the Board of Health whether or not they think the county is ready to move to phase 2. They do have the option to move to phase 2 with all of the businesses or activities that are listed there, or a subset of them if that would be their recommendation. Once the local health officer makes that recommendation to the local Board of Health, the local Board of Health then must consider that recommendation, must take a look at the situation in their county and determine if they want to move forward with a phase 2 approach, and whether they want to do all of phase 2 or a portion of that. The local Board of Health then, sitting again, thinking about the public's health, takes a vote around whether or not they want to move to phase 2. Each of the hospitals in that county need to also be engaged in this process. And if for some reason there's not a hospital in that county, then the hospitals that people are referred to have to be engaged. And they have to explicitly state that they have surge capacity, at least 20% surge capacity to handle more cases, and that they have at least a 14-day supply of all the personal protective equipment, the N95 respirators, the surgical masks, the gowns, for that kind of equipment, so that they can safely take care of patients and keep their healthcare workers safe. And they have to report their numbers daily to the health department for tracking their personal protective equipment as well as their hospital capacity. Once all of those things are in place, then the county commissioners are called together to vote on whether or not they want to accept the Board of Health recommendation to move forward. And they can only either accept or reject that request. They can't sort of in other ways modify that. That sort of starts the process then for the local health department to formally put together their application. And local health departments have to give us information around their testing capacity in the community, how many tests they're actually doing, how they are assuring access for folks who might be uninsured, who might have other languages, and to make sure that folks who traditionally are underserved have equal access to testing, both in terms of the speed and the services that are available. Then there's also the need for them to outline their capacity to be able to receive positive cases, those folks, to interview them, be able to help support them in making sure that they're able to safely house themselves in their home and not expose others in the home to COVID, and to be able to identify who their close contacts were, those being people that they've spent 10 minutes or more with in 6 feet of distance while they have been infectious. And that infectious period can be 2 or 3 days before the onset of symptoms and then from symptoms. So the health department has to demonstrate their capacity to do this work and their capacity to interview folks within the 24 and a 48-hour period. So we're looking to make sure that don't need hospitalization or who have been a close contact, but for whatever reason can't safely do that at home. Maybe they don't have a home. Maybe there's somebody who's immunocompromised in the home, so it's just not a safe place to be. So they need to demonstrate then that a county, the community, has capacity for folks to be housed there. And I will note that that housing is without charge to the individuals who need the service. So that is something that the government pays for folks. So that should not be a barrier, and for the services that they need to be able to safely be there. They have to demonstrate as well this capacity to provide assistance to folks who are safely housing themselves in their own home, should they need food or other kinds of services, and their ability to work with the community to provide that. It's just so important with this as we move from these phase 1 to phase 2, and as we start restarting our economy, that people who are having symptoms or who have had close contact stay home, do not infect other folks. And we have to make sure that they have the support to be able to successfully do that. And then we also ask the health department to indicate to us their capacity to perform outbreak investigations. So we know that COVID has not gone away. Even in these communities, there will be more cases. We need to, however, make sure that the community, that the health department is prepared to respond to an outbreak in a nursing home, a long-term care facility, in some kind of workplace, whatever that workplace might be, that might have a number of cases. And we're certainly seeing hotspots around the state in places like meatpacking and produce production places. So we need to make sure that a health department is prepared to quickly get on those, test people if necessary, put the control measures in place to see to it that it doesn't spread. So this really is a community effort. It requires our elected officials and others to support them. It requires them to support the community in implementing these safe behaviors in terms of returning to business. We know that everybody wants to be responsible, and we want to help people be able to follow those guidelines. So that's the process, and once those applications are completed, they're turned into the Department of Health for review, and then ultimately my decision-making around whether or not we think they are ready to move forward with safely being able to monitor the situation and respond. So with that, Governor, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, John, and thanks for your work on this. And by the way, we know next January you're going to another responsibility, and I want to thank you for what you've been doing for our state to date. I know you've been working really hard and in a very thoughtful way to have a public health expert who's nationally recognized, and you are. When I talk to Dr. Fauci and others, they recognize your talents, and we appreciate it, but you're not done. We know that. Look, this is really something we ought to feel good about in the state of Washington. The ability of people going back to work, the ability of people going back to restaurants after this most difficult time of economic anxiety and social distress. To be able to move forward like this is really something to celebrate. And we ought to do that. But I do want to just put my oar in the water on this issue that we do have to still recognize that we've made progress, but we're just so far from being out of the woods. I know some people sort of say, well, we should start worrying about the second wave of the virus. And when I hear that, I think, well, when did the first wave pass? Because it is not. We still are having somewhere 150, 200 people a day infected. This is not passed. We have flattened the curve, but it continues to haunt us and infect our communities. We have communities, for instance, Yakima, one of the highest infection rates in the western United States right now. So I think this moment is, I hope people do enjoy sort of 1 point joy and celebration and maybe 2 parts responsibility, because our ability to really succeed now depends on these counties that are going to be able to go to phase 2. Their really responsible behavior is going to be a guide for the rest of the state and be necessary for us to ultimately succeed. So I think that cautious, well-informed, scientifically reasoned measures are what we're going to need these local communities to show the way forward for the rest of the state of Washington. And the reason is clear. This has been too painful. We do not want to do this twice. We want to get this behind us. So we're going to look forward to the leadership in these local communities as they move forward. We know the consequences of this is tough. I just this morning heard that there's some cities in Germany that are having to go back to lockdown. We do not want to have to do that. So we'll look forward to local leadership really helping us make sure that we continue this journey of beating this virus. Bottom line is we still live in the era of COVID-19. And we're going to continue to look at data and make adjustments. Again, all the metrics we rely on, we talked about some of them today, but they're available to the public on our COVID-19 risk assessment dashboard, and that's found at coronavirus.wa.gov. Now, we have some more good news. Early this year, we allocated $10 million in our strategic reserve fund to assist impacted small businesses, with grants of up to $10,000 apiece to help them through this storm. And thanks to the work of the Department of Commerce and Lisa Brown, I'm pleased to announce the first round to 501 grant recipients from 20 counties across the state. These include businesses in hard-hit industries like retail, restaurants, construction, hospitality, salons, gyms, and theaters. They also represent a very broad cross-section of the small business owners of Washington, women, minority, tribal, veteran-owned businesses. We know these businesses can use this money to pay rent and utilities and supplies and inventory and non-payroll expenses. And for many of them, we hope this is a bridge to get them to the other side of this crisis. So to talk about that, I'll turn this over to Lisa Brown.
Thank you, Governor. You've described the program. I have to say, looking over the list of the businesses that are receiving the initial grants is a testament to Main Street USA and Main Street Washington. If you know a community, you will know some of these businesses because they are small businesses, sometimes family owned, and they give each community its unique character. And we want to thank our partner organizations, which are the associate development organizations in each county of Washington State. Every county has one of these organizations, whether it's the Pend Oreille Economic Development Council or Greater Spokane Incorporated, Spokane County, and they were our partners in receiving the applications, making the first cut, forwarding them to us so that we can send them on to the governor's office. And they are the ones in touch with the businesses. We really appreciate the work they put in to this program. And also our business resiliency organizations that help us by being peer connectors to the small businesses in their communities, such as the Tacoma Urban League or the Tri-Cities Hispanic Business Council. They also assisted small businesses in receiving these applications and making recommendations. Now, we know this isn't enough with overwhelming need right now that small businesses have as they look at safely reopening for themselves, their customers, and their employees. They've got costs, and these $10,000 grants may not cover all of them. So we also want to acknowledge that there are other resources out there, and we will be working for continued resources, whether it's support from the federal level, more at the state level, and the support that's coming in from local governments and private philanthropy. And it's most important to us that we are able to maintain this connection with these small businesses, hear what their needs are, and help navigate through this really challenging time. So thank you, Governor, for giving us the opportunity to talk about it.
Thanks, Lisa, and thanks for having a well-considered way of this application process. We know in the grand scheme of things, this is not a giant number, but we do want to show our appreciation for the small businesses that are the heartbeat of our smaller communities. And we know what it means to them and their neighbors. We have one of those small business owners here with us, Rob Owen. Rob is the owner of a family grocery store in Newport in Ponderay County. His family store has been in business since 1938. And Rob, I wonder if you have a few comments.
That's fine. Yes, first off, I'd just like to thank the Monterey County Economic Development Council and Jamie Barlick for helping us through the grant process, and the city of Newport, Russ Pelleberg, our city administrator. Obviously, the state, Ms. Brown and yourself, Mr. Hensley, for allocating these funds to businesses such as ourselves. And most importantly, our community and our customers that have continued to check in on us and support us during these trying times. Like I said, we were started in 1938 by my great-grandparent. I'm the fourth generation, and right now downstairs I have the fifth generation doing some real-world schoolwork, learning how to run a business. And I just can't begin to explain how much this community means to my family. And the grant process helps bring in outside dollars that unfortunately, based on these times, we're not able to see right now because our community is so dependent on Canadians coming down, and with the border being closed, and with people going up to Priest Lake and to open up their summer cabins. We rely on those outside dollars to come in, and so this grant will certainly help with some of those things. You guys are live.
So, Commissioner Hutchins, we're live.
All right, I'm going to wait for Commissioner Menser, just grabbing a cup of Joe, I believe. And Romero, has Elizabeth made it back?
Come again?
Oh, yay, Elizabeth, thank you. We left off with you, so we'll get back to you as soon as the other commissioner takes his seat. Thank you. Interesting day. All right, welcome back, everybody. It's still May 19, 2020, and we're continuing on with the agenda work session. And where we left off was a discussion with ORCA, but before we pick that up, I just would like to have the county manager kind of recap what we just learned from Governor Inslee's press release.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. And for the viewing public, we also live stream the governor's news conference. And it was somewhat of a welcome news for Thurston County, at least, where he allowed 10 additional counties to apply for a variance or waiver, so we can move quicker into the phase 2 as part of the phase 4-phase approach the governor has laid out in the last few weeks. There are some similar requirements that previous counties have utilized to get the waiver. And maybe a couple of additional items that we need to address. Certainly, we will be looking at these requirements. I'll be touching on base with the health officer, and we will bring a recommendation to the board as soon as possible. But again, good news, at least give the Thurston County the opportunity to assess moving into phase 2 again, out of the phase 4 approach the governor has laid out to open the economy.
Thank you. It's not only good news, it's very hopeful and exciting news as we move forward through opening up our economy again. So where we left off was the ORCA discussion. And I believe, I don't know if it was Commissioner Edwards, someone had a question of Elizabeth Petrich, our Deputy Prosecuting Attorney.
I was outlining the 3 questions, if I may, that you asked me last week. I provided to you all the many different clear air agencies across the state. I also outlined my conversation with Ms. Kathy Taylor from the Department of Ecology related to the funding. And as I stated to you before the break, there has to be a payment for the services if the county decides to pull back from ORCA. And I also asked whether the $115,000 will be enough to cover the services. And her response was going to be very unlikely they will not be enough. Those are the 2 questions that I had, at least from my point of view. The 3rd question was whether the sole action of Thurston County to pull out of ORCA, will that action will include the other cities to pull out of ORCA automatically. That will be the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater. And I believe that question was for Elizabeth, and Elizabeth is ready to answer that question for you.
All right, thank you.
Elizabeth Petrich, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney. That question is actually the short answer to that question is yes. If Thurston County chooses to withdraw, it will pull with it all the town incorporated areas of the town as well. That's because the authority includes not only unincorporated Thurston County, but incorporated Thurston County as well. And that opinion was also shared by the attorney that advises the ORCA group as well, Jeff Myers.
Okay. Go ahead, Romero.
I don't know if you have any questions. I'm prepared to provide a recommendation to the board.
That's where I was going. Any questions of Elizabeth from her seatmates? Nope. Okay. Do you have a recommendation, Romero?
Yeah, my recommendation, I think it was, for me, at least from my point of view, is a good exercise to go through this process. I think all of us have learned a little bit more as to how the different nuances of ORCA and how the Department of Ecology plays a role and everything else. But I do believe that we do have good services from ORCA based on the contributions that we provide. My recommendation to the board will be to continue the partnership with the ORCA organization.
All right. Do my seatmates want to say anything about that? Nope. Okay. Thank you, Romero. Moving on to thank you, Elizabeth, as well. Moving on to number 2 is the substitute House bill, the final bill report. This is regarding the C-PACER program.
So this is a introduction to this bill. I think we briefly touched base on this bill while it was going through the legislative process earlier this year. So this bill was passed and approved by the governor. So the intent of this is not necessarily for you to take an action. It's just to broach the subject as a potential options the county may have down the road. And again, the House Bill 2405 is specifically related to property assessed clean energy, also known as PACE programs, which provide for the financing mechanism to encourage the installation of renewable energy system and energy efficiency improvements on residential, industrial, or commercial properties. Property assessed clean energy program exists on both residential properties, also known as residential PACE or RPACE, and also commercial properties, we also know as C-PACE. This new legislation, that legislation was already in place. The new legislation adds another component to that which is the C-PACER. The R is for this resiliency related to this particular legislation. So eligible improvements frequently include installation of solar thermal panels, high efficiency air conditioning installation, both commercial and residential PACE programs, allow a property owner to finance upfront cost of energy or other eligible improvements on a property and then pay costs back over time through a property assessment. Very clear, property assessment. What a property assessment is, property assessment or benefit assessment may be imposed on benefited properties to pay for local improvements or to finance their activities in public facilities. Special assessments are not property taxes, but rather special charges created to recover funds to pay for services or improvements. They have particular direct benefit to this particular program and the owners. In this bill, the Department of Commerce may establish a voluntary statewide C-PACER program in which counties may choose to participate. Counties may also establish separate voluntary countywide C-PACER. Eligible properties include privately owned commercial, industrial, or agricultural real estate properties or multifamily residential real properties with 5 or more dwelling units. This C-PACER needs to meet a specific criteria, which is reduce greenhouse emissions, be effective for reducing energy, be appropriate to meet seismic risks, reduce stormwater pollution, and or reduce the risk of wildfire, flooding, and other natural disasters. Also, Commerce may provide a grant to counties to assist in the design and implementation of the C-PACER program. And it goes on and describes a little more in detail. And that is really the context of that. When the governor was in the process of approving signing this bill into law, the governor issued a partial veto in this bill, which removed the obligation that Commerce had to fund a statewide C-PACER program, and also relieve Commerce from developing this supplemental guidebook for counties to implement this program. So there is an option for bigger counties, urban counties particularly, which Thurston County is included, to implement a C-PACER program, and I'm going to describe what the steps the county has an option, which the OFM, the Office of Financial Management, has established that perhaps that will cost to counties about $46,000 to implement. The steps that we need to take related to this particular item, if the county chooses to move on, develop a county ordinance to establish the program, assessment agreements between the county, property owner, and lender, existing lien holders, consent form, qualifying improvement certifications, C-PACER lien form, assignment of C-PACER lien form, and final certification of all complete improvements. I have to be clear, the county and the local governments do not fund those improvements on a specific property owners. It has to be a third party, a lender, who can probably fund those specific improvements under this program. And as a result of funding those programs, the lender will recover the cost of that investment over a longer period of time through an assessment on the individual property owners who choose to come into the C-PACER program. This is becoming into law as an option. It's not a requirement for the county here, I believe, in June of 2020. And as for right now, I don't have any feedback related if any other county at this point is contemplating getting into this program. I know that Commissioner Menzer wanted to have a little briefing on this. This is the first initial briefing on this particular bill. And again, I'm not expecting at this point the board to make any particular decisions, but just introduce the concept and see where it goes from here.
Go ahead, Ty.
On the frequently asked questions document, which is, I think, attached, there's two documents, I think, in our packet that are together. On the back is a frequently asked question. I would just call attention to the board to number 4, that the loan payments and debt collection are handled by the CPACER lender, not the county government. Counties that establish a financing program will charge the lender an administrative handling fee at the time the CPACER lien is filed. Consequently, there is no use of county funds. One of the biggest challenges we have in climate mitigation, I've been learning a lot about this during this pandemic for various reasons. One is I was supposed to be at an all-day seminar on green infrastructure that instead of having it all day in Tacoma on a Saturday in April, they took each session and they've parceled it out. So where there would be like 10 breakout sessions and I would go to one, now I can go to all 10 because they're happening at like lunchtime every day for like 5 weeks. So, or 3 times a week. So anyway, I've seen a lot of presentations about buildings and how retrofitting large buildings is one of our biggest climate mitigation challenges, because from a finance perspective, the market is such that most commercial property owners are looking at what's going to turn in like 4 to 5 years. So retrofitting improvements that are going to see value over 9 or 10 years often struggle to get financed. And this is kind of the cleanest way that anybody's come up with to incentivize that financing without creating, a big government bureaucracy program. It's essentially, there is an administration element, but it's about as minimal as I think you're going to get. And so anyway, this is a pretty relatively easy but significant win for us on moving toward our climate goals. The other thing I would just say is that even though the veto took out the funding for the state created program guidebook, there's a group called Shift Zero that's basically got a task force, and they're going to basically supplement that work. They're going to step in and create the guidebook and the implementation plan kind of along the lines of what the state would have been creating at taxpayer expense. They're going to do that. And so we can kind of keep our eyes out for that too, to get some help and guidance on how we might want to move forward. Those are my comments there.
Commissioner Edwards, anything to add?
I guess, did we also have input from the Economic Development Council on this, and how does it tie in with some of our condos and apartment buildings? I'm just a little bit curious on that. This is relatively new, so just a question.
Yeah.
So is this something that the board, because you've been through these sessions, Ty, that we can get a presentation or a briefing from some of the involved in this?
I'm sure we could. I know some of the people that I saw at these talks are involved, and I'm sure I could reach out if the board would like to have more information. The bill becomes effective in June, so we have, we're not, obviously it's voluntary. So we have, a little bit of time to try and get more information before we'd even be able to act. So I'm happy to do that if it's the board's pleasure.
All right, go ahead, Romero.
I don't have the answer to that question, Commissioner Edwards, but certainly at this point, my intent is just to introduce this item to the board's attention. I think needs a lot of additional work. Perhaps a briefing, as Commissioner Messer stated, will be extremely beneficial for the board. And then systematically, we have to see how this could be an option for the county, for the board to implement. I'll be curious, hopefully, I think this group, Commissioner Messer stated, they also developed somewhat of a CAN ordinance the counties could use, and that would be very helpful because also I am learning about this new bill, and I am learning about this new possibility. So a lot of questions, and I don't necessarily have all the answers at this point. Not that I ever have.
But a good concept and a good discussion nonetheless, and we have a couple of weeks before June, but even if it goes into June, we can still jump in any time.
Yeah, June is when the availability becomes to the board, but it's not a requirement for you to enact anything on June 1st.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to have a briefing. Would you, Gary?
Yes.
Okay.
There you go. Thank you for bringing that forward, Commissioner Mansur. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as Ramiro finishes his notes, public testimony.
Before that, I have nothing on public testimony, Commissioner.
Okay.
But I do have an item that is not on your agenda.
Yeah, oh yeah, please, thank you.
Yeah, we received a request from the Long Lake Management District. They're in the process of implementing the project to treat the lake, which is a little bit of a time sensitive. And really, the request is from the financial point of view. In the current budget, they have a specific dollar amount. They will give them the authority to go ahead and contract the services of a contractor to treat the lake. They just realized that there is not enough budget authority to implement that. They need additional budget authority in order of $56,000. They do have money in their fund to meet this requirement. This is more of a technical request. If the board feels comfortable today, we certainly include this on the upcoming regular budget amendment. They will be increasing the budget authority for them to go ahead and implement this program in Long Lake. So considering this, the time is of the essence for them to start working on the contractual aspects. Not only they cannot sign the contract until you take an action of the appropriation entirely, but they would like to move forward in the process to be ready and coincide with your potential action of the budget amendment, and as well as issue and them signing that contract. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those questions, but at this point, I'd like to at least hear your concurrence that you'll be okay and with this project when the item comes before you for a formal action in terms of budget amendment.
I have a point of clarification. Did you say 5.3 or 6.3 thousand?
56,000 additional.
Okay.
And they do have available funding on the ending fund balance of their fund.
Okay. Well, I'd like to move on it because they have times of the essence and they need this so they get started with it right away or as soon as they can. But go ahead, Commissioner Edwards, you had your hand up.
And this is self-funding by the Lake Management District folks, right? This isn't tapping into our budget.
No, we are the fiduciary agency who help manage their financials. And that's how the county provides the services. But the funding, the revenue source is by the lake, Long Lake residents, by a special assessment.
Do you have any questions, Ty, before I go to Robin?
I remember several briefings related to water treatment in Black Lake. Is this Long Lake treatment, is this just something that they do routinely or matter of course, or is this something new that they're trying? We know.
Understanding that they do the treatment on a routine basis, but this year they have decided they need 2 treatments to be most effective, which is why this is becoming before you.
Is this alum stuff that we heard about before?
I would have to read to see exactly what it is.
Okay. Just curious.
And what kind of time frame are they operating under, Robin?
It's my understanding that they need to give 2 weeks advance notice, and the 1st of June is when the window closes, but the contractor says they could wait a few more days for this to come to the board. So they're right at the end of the window.
Well, I'm ready to get the bureaucrats out of the way. Let them do this.
No, you're not approving, you just provide.
I'm not approving. I'm just
provide guidance
stating.
at this point, please.
Because it would come back to us next week.
I think it's a couple of weeks more, we have the budget amendment. Go ahead.
That's right. So the budget amendment, you would have under normal circumstances already acted on the budget amendment. But due to the pandemic, we have pushed that out. And I think that the new calendar has you taking action in like around June, I want to say June 15th, but it's a few weeks out before you would act. And that's when you would approve the budget amendment and they'd have the contract ready to go.
And this is for application in the lake. And you might not know this, but I'm just wondering about the technical piece of this. They do an application. How long before the folks can enter the lake and play?
Oh, I would not know that at all.
We got summer coming.
I would assume the time is of the essence because the summer months are coming, and that's what they want to be one step ahead so they can the residents can use the lake.
Right, and people want to get out.
Right.
All right. Any other questions, Gary?
I guess I'm curious what we need because I want to help these folks get it done. So what do we need to do here?
I'll want just your concurrence in terms of this is something to give the Long Lake folks a direction to move forward. That's all it is at this point.
At their expense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I got a thumbs up. Commissioner Menser? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
good. You're very welcome. And you'll let them know right away, I would imagine.
I've got the email on my screen.
Okay, thank you. And you have no public testimony.
No, sir.
And you want to get into commissioner items, or you want 10 to noon, or do you want to go into the executive session?
My suggest to move into the executive session, sir.
Could we just have one comment here between the board before we do that?
Yeah.
The governor has just given us this authority to explore looking into safely opening up under phase 2, and time is money in the real world. All of us and government employees, we've been getting a check right along. There are some people out there that are really hurting, and I would like to ask my seatmates or the county manager if there's something that we need to do to kind of expedite, I know this isn't gonna happen overnight, but to get the process kind of going. And if it takes an action of the board right now, or we're headed in that direction, that's what I want to make sure.
No, I believe the board is interested in exercising this option.
Okay.
That's my assumption, so I'd like to hear your perspective on that. So I working under the assumption that the board is interested in moving forward and exercising this action. So one of the first steps will be to contact the health officer to hear her perspective, and that's what I'm planning to do today.
The health officer, and we will also, I mean, it's a pretty comprehensive application for the variance that needs to go in. And and I already talked to Romero before we came back to the session, and this is a priority. It's going to take some time, and I know the county chamber and the EDC and others are active and excited about this as well. But I agree that time is of the essence, because I already know some people personally who have lost their businesses in the last 2 weeks. They're just gone and defunct, and I would love to stop that bleeding. So it's a priority for me. I understand it is for you too. Commissioner Menser, anything to say?
No, if we can get the health officer certification, which is a required part of the application anyway, then I'm very excited to do that. It's, phase 2 still has very significant safeguards built in, and we can kind of move to that point and take it seriously and then assess where we are. So I'm very happy to try to expedite our application and hopefully move our community forward.
And then I can get a haircut like Josh has. All right. Anything further? All right. So we're going to move into executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.110, subsection 1, subsection I, to discuss with legal counsel representing the agency litigation or potential litigation, Stride's contract, commissioner actions may follow. About how much time do you think we need for this, or do you need for this?
I'll say probably a good 20, 25 minutes.
Well, I will say 25 minutes, and for the record, I am excusing myself and recusing myself from this executive session. So I'll go flip the sign outside. Why? There's nobody here. But I'm going to sign out. Thank you.
Yeah, let's wait until the live feed is done.